My name is Somkid. I'm 80 years old, and I want to tell you what is actually blocking the money you have been waiting for, because that is more useful than the framing the title offers. Your energy is not blocking your money, not in the sense that the title implies. There is no energetic frequency you are emitting that is repelling financial abundance from approaching you. There is no vibrational mismatch between your current state and the money that is supposedly waiting to arrive. Those are not descriptions of how money moves in the world. They are metaphors that have been mistaken for mechanisms, and when you try to fix a problem by addressing a metaphor instead of the actual mechanism, nothing changes. What may genuinely be blocking the money you have been waiting for is something much more specific, something traceable, something that, when you see it clearly and address it honestly, actually responds. And that something is almost always one of 5 very practical things that have nothing to do with your energetic frequency and everything to do with the specific quality of what you are doing, thinking, and avoiding in your actual financial life. Stay with me, because what I want to share today is genuinely useful in a way that energy work cannot be useful for financial change. I was born in northern Thailand into genuine material scarcity. I understand what it means to wait for financial improvement that does not come. And I have spent 8 decades observing what actually produces financial change in real human lives versus what feels like it should produce financial change without actually doing so. The difference between those two things is almost always the difference between addressing the actual mechanism and addressing the metaphor. The first thing that may be genuinely blocking your financial improvement is not your energy. It is your avoidance of honest financial clarity. This is by far the most consistent blocker I have observed in people whose financial lives remain stuck despite genuine effort and genuine hope. The avoidance of looking directly at the actual numbers, the preference for a comfortable impression of the financial situation over the specific, honest, sometimes uncomfortable clarity that would make genuine navigation possible. That avoidance feels protective. What it actually does is prevent the kind of clear seeing from which real movement becomes possible. When you do not know exactly what comes in and exactly what goes out and exactly where the gaps are, you cannot address those gaps specifically. You can hope, you can visualize, you can adjust your energy, but you cannot navigate deliberately toward a different financial situation because you do not have the clear picture of your current situation from which genuine navigation must begin. That is what is blocking the money, not your frequency. Your avoidance of the clarity that would allow you to actually do something about where you are. The second thing that may be genuinely blocking your financial improvement is not your energy. It is the consistent undervaluing of what you create. Most people who are not receiving the financial outcomes they want are not being withheld from by a hostile universe. They are withholding from themselves. Setting prices that reflect their anxiety about whether they are worth it, rather than the actual market value of what they produce. Accepting the first offer without exploring whether more is available. Not asking for what they know their work is worth, because the asking feels uncomfortable or presumptuous or risky. And the cost of that consistent self-undervaluing, calculated honestly over months and years, is often a very large number. That is what is blocking the money, not a vibrational mismatch. The specific and consistent gap between what you are claiming for your work and what your work is actually worth. And that gap responds to specific and concrete action, to asking for more, to setting prices that reflect real value, to negotiating rather than accepting the default. None of that requires an energetic shift. It requires a behavioral one. And here's what I didn't understand then. For many years I attributed what I received for my work to the market and to circumstances, rather than to what I was asking for and how I was asking for it. I did not see the degree to which what I claimed was determined by what I believed I deserved. When I began to examine that belief and act on a more accurate assessment of what my work was worth, the financial results changed. Not because my energy had shifted, because my behavior had shifted. The third thing that may be genuinely blocking your financial improvement is not your energy. It is a specific and nameable belief about what someone like you can reasonably expect to receive financially. Most people carry such beliefs without ever examining them directly. They were formed early, through family and culture and experience, and they feel so natural and so obvious that they register as accurate descriptions of economic reality, rather than as stories about what is possible that could be examined and potentially revised. Those beliefs do not block money through any energetic mechanism. They block money by shaping every financial decision in ways that tend to confirm them. The person who believes that prosperity is for other kinds of people will consistently make decisions, set prices, pursue opportunities, and negotiate in ways that produce results consistent with that belief. Not because the universe is enforcing the belief, because the belief is shaping the behavior that produces the results, and changing the belief through honest examination of where it came from and whether it is actually true produces different behavior that produces different results. The fourth thing that may be genuinely blocking your financial improvement is not your energy. It is the specific financial action you have been avoiding. There is almost always, in the life of anyone whose financial situation is persistently not what they want it to be, a specific and nameable thing that they know needs to happen and that is not happening. Not a vague general improvement, a specific concrete action. The conversation about compensation that keeps being postponed. The price increase that keeps being planned but not implemented. The decision about a work arrangement that is not compensating fairly. The honest look at the debt situation that has been avoided for months. The specific skill development that would unlock better financial opportunities, but that requires sustained effort that keeps being deferred. That specific avoided action is not being bypassed by any energetic adjustment. It requires being done. And the money that is supposedly blocked is in many cases directly waiting on the other side of that specific action. Not because the universe is rewarding the action, because the action creates the actual conditions that produce the actual result. The action is the mechanism, and no adjustment of energy replaces the mechanism. You know what surprised me most when I began to understand financial change in this way? How relieving it was, not how discouraging. I had expected that removing the cosmic framework would make the situation feel more hopeless, as if the universe's cooperation had been the only thing standing between me and what I wanted. What I actually found was the opposite. When I stopped waiting for my energy to align and started identifying the specific, practical things that were actually blocking the results I wanted and addressing them specifically, I had much more genuine agency than the energy framework had ever given me. Because the energy framework made the problem invisible and external, the practical framework made it visible and addressable. The fifth thing that may be genuinely blocking your financial improvement is not your energy. It is the quality of your attention to what is actually available in your current circumstances. This is the one that has the most connection to what the energy framing is trying to describe, but it is better understood practically than energetically. The person whose attention is consumed by anxiety and comparison, and the gap between where they are and where they want to be, is genuinely less able to notice what is actually available in their current situation than the person whose attention is more present and more clear. Not because their energy is different, because their attention is. A worried and scattered attention misses things. It sees the problem, but not the resource adjacent to the problem. It sees the obstacle, but not the path around it. It sees the gap, but not the bridge that is already partially built. Developing a clearer and more present quality of attention through whatever practice allows you to quiet the habitual noise of comparison and anxiety genuinely produces a different quality of perception that makes more of what is actually available visible. That is real and worth developing. But it is a cognitive and attentional skill, not an energetic frequency. What most people don't realize is that addressing these 5 practical things, the avoidance of honest clarity, the consistent undervaluing of what you create, the unexamined beliefs about what you deserve, the specific avoided action, and the quality of your attention to what is available, produces exactly the kind of results that the energy framework promises but cannot deliver through energetic means. Because these things are the actual mechanisms, and actual mechanisms, when addressed directly, produce actual results. At 80 years old, I can tell you that every significant financial improvement I have experienced or observed in others was traceable to one or more of these practical mechanisms being addressed, not to an energetic shift, the clarity that was finally developed, the claim that was finally made honestly, the belief that was finally examined, the avoided action that was finally taken, the attention that was finally brought to what was actually available. Those are the things that were blocking the money. And those are the things that, when addressed, allow the money to move, not through cosmic channels, through the actual ordinary mechanisms of how financial value moves in the world between people who create it and people who receive it. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 practical things you recognize as most present in your own financial situation right now. Not the answer that sounds most spiritually evolved, the honest one. Because the honest answer is the one that points to the actual work that needs to happen. And if this message gave you something genuine to work with, stay close to this space, because the money that has been blocked is almost always blocked by something specific and addressable. And addressing it, one concrete, honest step at a time, is what actually allows it to move.